Do you ever feel like artists that you see making really beautiful work online have uninterrupted studio time for hours on end? They have a perfect studio, and then you're over here just trying to fit creativity in between work, laundry, making dinner, real life stuff. For a long time, I thought that becoming an artist meant that you needed all those things, like a perfect studio and hours of uninterrupted time. These things that I just did not have. Over the last 3 years, I've been able to go from not even knowing how to paint to last year selling over 50 pieces of original artwork, all while working a full-time job. I never had hours and hours of uninterrupted time or a perfect studio to work from. If you are trying to build a creative practice that actually fits into your real life, this video is for you. Hey everyone, my name is Liz. Welcome to my studio. I am a part-time professional artist based in the Midwest. In the last 3 years, I went from not even knowing how to paint to last year selling over 50 pieces of original artwork, all while working a full-time job. I like to talk about building a creative practice that is sustainable, it's joyful, and it actually fits into your real life. Today we're talking about how to consistently create art while working a full-time job without burning yourself out in the process. I have 6 pieces of advice I'm gonna share with you today in this video. Point number 1, balance is bullshit. The idea of balance, just chuck it out the window. It doesn't exist. Some seasons you're gonna be painting all the time, you're gonna have tons of ideas, and other seasons you're just not. You're gonna have like 10 minutes in the studio, and that's gonna have to be enough. Especially as women, our energy ebbs and flows with your cycle. You're not gonna show up the same way on day 1 of your cycle versus like day 20 of your cycle. The goal is not perfect consistency. Your goal is to work with your life, not to fight against it. I have experienced so much frustration trying to fight against what was actually happening in my life. I was so frustrated when I couldn't show up, I couldn't create or produce the work that I wanted to, when I was setting myself up for failure, pretending I had this fantasy schedule, when really I had boundaries and constraints to work within. And those things aren't bad, you just have to learn to work with them instead of fighting against them. The last 6 months, I have hardly been in the studio at all, to be quite honest with you. I was struggling with some health issues, and I physically couldn't sit still long enough to paint. This was a season where I could not be producing work. I couldn't have show deadlines. I had to do things in really small pieces and small bits of time just to keep that flame of creativity alive. And that had to be enough until pretty recently. Instead of thinking, how do I show up equally all the time? Ask yourself, how can I keep showing up in little ways no matter what season I'm in? How can you keep that little flame of creativity alive? That's gonna save you so much frustration and grief, I promise you. Point number 2 for you is consistency matters more than the amount of hours. Creativity is a skill built on repetition. So I would say spending 10 minutes a day for 4 or 5 days is gonna be a bigger benefit to you than if you spend one day of a 3-hour session in the studio if you don't come back for another month. So showing up regularly like that, even if it's just 10 minutes, builds the pattern in your brain that I am an artist. This is something I do every day. I know exactly what to do when I sit down. That's gonna help build your confidence. It's gonna build the connections in your brain. All of those small sessions, even if they're just 10 minutes, it totally takes the pressure off. You're not here to paint a masterpiece. This is just a little 10-minute session to get messy in the studio. The goal isn't to create a masterpiece every time you're in the studio. The goal is to simply stay connected to your creativity. And that's gonna give you much more positive outcomes in the long run than having a 3-hour studio session twice a month where you're having to reintroduce yourself into wait, what am I doing here? I have to figure everything out again every time you come back into the studio. Stay connected to your creativity. Point number 3, create a realistic schedule. Stop building schedules for your fantasy self and build schedules for your actual life. I fell into this trap and it was so frustrating. Don't do it. Don't do what I did. Make creating easy. Keep your supplies out in the same space every day where you can see them. Keep them somewhere where you walk past them multiple times a day. You'll be much more likely to sit down, I know I was, if I could see my supplies and everything was sitting out and I didn't have to go find it. If you can have a dedicated creative space, that's great, but it can literally be a corner of a table in your kitchen. It doesn't have to be a whole extra room. When I started painting, it was literally a section of the wall I put a nail in there, hung the canvas, and just painted on the wall. I didn't get that security deposit back from that apartment, but that's okay. Keep an idea bank. Find a way to keep references so that when you do have time to paint, create, you're not having to go search for your references. You have a space where you know you can find some good ones and you can just find one you like and get to work. This one's huge. Give yourself a reason to come back. If there's a part of the creative process that you really, really enjoy, leave that part for the next studio session. Leave something that you're excited to do for the next time so that when you come into the studio the next time, you get to sit down, you're like, oh, I know I get to do this really fun thing. As soon as I get into work, I'm gonna wanna come back to your studio as soon as you can. Point number 4 is protect your creative energy. You are a precious human being. You are not a machine. You cannot create out of a deficit. Like if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't be creative. Like all of these foundational things of like your health, basic things have to be met before you can dive into something creative, something abstract. I have learned that this year so much with the health issues I was dealing with. You cannot create out of a deficit. And you are worth more than your work. Like, that's probably the most important thing out of this whole video. You are worth more than your work. Don't try to force something when you got really big things going on. Like, creative energy is gonna ebb and flow. You're not gonna be able to give 100% if some of these foundational things, like health, sleep, are just not there. So focus on those first, and all the rest will flow out of that. That's the way you want to be creating. Something that's been helpful for me to think about is rhythms over routines. Like routines are really strict and rigid, but rhythms like ebb and flow, like we were talking about before. They can adapt to whatever's going on in your life. You know, it could be a short studio session instead of a couple of hour one, or like you're feeling really good, you're on it, you're like, I have got all this energy, I'm just gonna go with it. And you have a couple hours. That's the best feeling ever. I love that feeling. There's an idea called the energy menu. I think it was Kelsey Rodriguez. She is another YouTuber who talks about art marketing. The idea of an energy menu is that you have different tasks based on like the level of energy you have. So you have a ton of energy, like starting a new painting or doing the like really important foundational layers to set up a painting. Like you have low energy, like doing simple admin tasks or scheduling a post or something like that. I really liked that idea and I actually use it all the time now. In my head, I'm like, I have one little thing I can do today, or like, I have 20 minutes, I'm just gonna go put a hanger on the back of that painting, or I'm gonna sign this pile of prints or something like that. It's so great and it's so helpful. Point number 5 is use what you have. I think this is important because I think it's so easy to separate making art from the rest of life, or at least I thought that way for a long time. Like, here's my full-time job stuff and here's art stuff, and they don't meet in between. But you should let them meet in between. I think there's some really cool things that could happen if you let those things meet in the middle and mingle. Are there transferable skills from your day job? My day job is actually very creative, and I've done a ton of transferable things that strengthen creative muscles. And that was so exciting for me. Even if your full-time job doesn't feel super creative, or you know, you're just taking care of your kids and you're like, well, that's not creative. Don't underestimate it. Just carry a notebook around and just look for ideas everywhere that you are, because you'll start to see them, and then it's not gonna feel like you're living 2 separate lives. You want those things to become one, because they are. This is your life. All of these different areas are all part of you, and the work that you create is going to be uniquely yours because of all those different experiences that are unique to you. So use what you have. Point number 6, what my week actually looks like. Here's what my week actually looks like as someone who's creating art consistently while working a full-time job. So for me, having 2 or 3 evenings in the studio is like, that is a fantastic week. That's a fabulous week for me. I might get an hour or 2 on Monday morning because I work Monday nights, and maybe 1 or 2 other evenings during the week. And those could be maybe an hour to like maybe 2 hours, but like, that's it. I honestly, I can't work for more than like 40 minutes without needing a break. Like, I found that I just don't have the attention span. Actually, one thing that's really helped with that is using noise canceling headphones. That like whoa. It like tunes out everything and you're just like whoosh, in like your own little world. It's fantastic. So if you haven't tried that, give it a shot. Let me know how it goes for you because wow. A couple evenings a week and then maybe an hour on Monday morning, just depending on what's going on. I'll take a break every like 40-45 minutes probably at least. In the evenings, I mean, my brain is done by the end of the day. Like I work better in the mornings, but I just don't want to get up that early. So that's where we are right now. But I try to finish and wrap up before I'm like super duper exhausted, so that I still have energy to kind of clean things up, make sure there's something fun to do the next time I'm in the studio, and like get ready for bed and not be a total zombie. And that also really, really helps. So that's what a normal week looks like for me. Like if I have 6 hours in the studio during the week, that is huge. That's amazing. I also find having something set up to work on. So like, I don't need to think about what am I painting? I need to think of a new idea, like none of that, no. I've actually been doing some still lifes lately from life. And so one little chunk of studio time was setting the studio up and setting up the still life, and that's all I did. And then the next time I came back to paint, I did the first couple layers. And then, so like during that week, all I did was work on that still life and it was great. Like I didn't have to think about anything. I could just sit down, everything was ready for me and turn on the light and off I go. It was fabulous. I should do more of that. So when you're working this into your own practice, you want it to feel like you're continuing a conversation with your artwork rather than starting from scratch every time you come into the studio. So if there's one thing you take away from this entire video, I hope it's this. You do not need perfect circumstances to build a meaningful creative practice. You just don't. I am living proof of that. You don't even have to quit your day job. You just have to keep finding ways to engage your creativity over and over again on a consistent, regular basis. I'd love to hear in the comments what your biggest challenges are when it comes to making art that fits alongside the rest of your life. So leave a comment below if you have a suggestion, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.